The following is the introduction from Feasting Free on Wild Edibles by Bradford Anger, published by Stackpole Books. The ISBN number is 0-8117-2754-8. It's an awesome book. I highly recommend it. It says some of the best foods in the world are free. Long before we thought of raising them in our gardens and on our farms and ranches, all our commonest fruits and vegetables were growing wild. Wild foods have always been important in this young country. The Pilgrims derived considerable nourishment during their first desperate winter from ground nuts, which are similar to small potatoes. California's 49ers, plagued by scurvy because of the scarcity of food in some of the gold camps, were introduced to miner's lettuce by the Indians in Spanish. Farther north, scurvy grass performed a similar function, both preventing and curing the vitamin deficiency disease amongst early frontiersmen. When regular rations of the Lewis and Clark expedition had to be reduced to one biscuit a day, it was the sweet yellow fruit of the pawpaw that kept men going. Even today, in this age of space flight and split atoms, sustenance tasty enough to satisfy us in times of plenty, and nourishing enough to keep us healthy if survival ever becomes a problem, grows free for the asking in yards, vacant lots, fields, along roadsides, seashores, and mesas, stream banks, lake edges, and within marshes and sequestered woodlands, ready and waiting for those who recognize the bounties they hold. I'll finish there. The introduction goes on, but I want to discuss with you dandelion greens, and I'll read you here what it says of dandelions, or at least the beginning of what it has to offer on the subject from this book. It says here that the book here offers a recipe for dandelion wine. Likewise, it offers a recipe for dandelion greens mixed with eggs, and mentions that taraxacum, which comes from the roots of dandelions, is also a laxative, and but they can be eaten, and I actually prefer them. They're quite tasty, but you have to take into mind their laxative properties. They're highly similar to carrots or parsnips. It says here, there's about 3 pages on dandelion greens. I'm just going to read a portion from one paragraph. It says that the well-known dandelion of flower beds, lawns, pastures, meadows, roadsides, and other moist open places boasts some 3 species in this country and about 25 in the civilized world over which it is widespread. The green leaves are long and narrow, spreading in rosette at the bottom. Their coarse edges, irregularly lobed and toothed, give this wild edible its name, which means lion's tooth. Alright, let's look here. Here you see in the opening picture here, for the last 3 minutes, you've seen this roadside image. This is actually near my mother's house in a rural community outside of this city. And these are not dandelions, but I was getting an image just to show you the region. This is actually at the front of her driveway. These are dandelions, these yellow flowers you see here. You can see the little budded stems there where the flowers have yet to open. Oftentimes you find these in their little, they'll have the cottony, seedy things, buds that open up at some part of the season, in which children often blow into the air. Next, here's a picture of a dandelion up close. Of course, you can see the buds even closer. Now, I'm going to go into picking and cleaning these here, and you'll see here the sawtooth lobes they were talking about at the bottom of this plant here. And of course, here's a close-up of the image. and these are the actual tastiest part, the most abundant part. I particularly like the roots, as I think they're much tastier, but the greens are good too. And if you like spinach, they have a texture cooked which is not unsimilar to cooked spinach, and the flavor is actually a bit different, but now they have to be prepared correctly in order to be eaten and palatable. Carefully dig out around the edges of the base of the leaves to secure the whole plant, grabbing the roots and all. They should come out in one nice clump, probably bringing a bit of soil with it when it does, and shake as much soil off of the roots there as you can. And then when you get ready to cook them, you're going to need some pebbles. So if you don't have pebbles at the house and they're available in the area in which you're plucking your wild dandelion greens, I suggest getting them there. And keep in mind the area in which you grab these greens should be familiar to you, as some areas of roadsides are treated by chemicals and such, and you don't want to poison yourself due to man's chemicals curbing things. This area, as I said, was out in a rural community, and they don't worry about such there. Likewise, you can find dandelions in your own backyard. A lot of times you can anyway. Fields and vacant lots all over. I'm looking out my window now, and across the street's a vacant lot. Actually, it's my door. I'm looking out, and I can see a number of dandelions almost knee-high over there. So they're pretty abundant. And of course, I know from living in the area that field's not treated with a lawnmower, let alone any kind of insecticide. So they're readily available. When you get ready to cook them, you're going to need some. You see here, you're going to need some butter. You're going to need a small pot. Saucepan will work well. Some salt, I like chopped onion, and you'll definitely need some garlic. I've got garlic powder here, and I used I prefer garlic cloves, whole garlic cloves or minced garlic. There is the garlic is going to offset the flavor some and add to it, and now you'll need the pebbles to go into the bottom of the pot when you cook the plant, and I'll go into detail what parts are most tasty and what have you in a minute. But when you cook it, you can cook it all together after you've separated its entities, but you'll want to parboil it at least twice. I usually boil them about 3 times. The first time you put some rocks in the bottom of the pot. You can see here I put the little gravel, and you want gravel as opposed to actual rocks because you want them to be able to float up in the boiling water. This is gonna act as an abrasive, and you can actually add salt the first time, or you can wait till the second time. I do both. I use the salt in conjunction with the pebbles in order to parboil the leaves and the roots, and this is to get rid of that strong earthy flavor that they contain. Pretty much, I guess a better word would be dirt. If you don't like eating dirt, you'll definitely want to ensure that you parboil your plant here. And again, the greens are quite tasty once they're cooked right. If they're not cooked right, especially the roots, the tubers, if you don't cook those right, you'll certainly know it, and they'll be very bitter, and they won't make you sick or anything, except perhaps the bitter flavor in the immediate moment. But it's no long-term damage you got to worry about. It's just the actual sensation of dealing with that unpleasant taste. You want to take and wash the roots off very thoroughly. Shaking off all of the dirt and washing it all off, and then you'll want, of course, to go in and begin separating the plant. I usually separate first the buds and the flower heads. Now the buds are really bitter, and I don't cook them. They are edible, and there's vitamins there, but I don't cook them. The flowers, they add color to the final dish, and they add flavor, and they are somewhat different than the leaves or the roots. And the stems themselves, they're edible, but they're very straw-like if you don't cook them very well. And so what happens is you have to cook certain parts of the plants longer than other. If you're focused on the leaves, then you probably parboiling them 3 times with a final boil of about 20 minutes. It'll take about an hour total to prepare. Will produce the leaves, and you can produce the roots in about the same time, but the roots need to actually boil a little bit longer than the leaves, because they'll have a stronger flavor. And likewise, the flowers should boil with the roots longer than the leaves. While the stems are edible, I focus more so on my favorite part is the roots, the tubers. Now, basically cleaning the leaves is nothing more than separating them from the plant and washing them. The tubers, the roots, they're a little bit different, and you can see here I've got everything sorted into 3 stacks here. I've got actually there's kind of like 4, but one plate over to the far left has just the leaves. This is just one plant, and this is a whole meal for one person, and actually 2 could eat off of this. The middle tray has buds, flowers, and the smaller roots, and then the bowl to the right is going to have the larger roots and tubers. And now I ended up discarding the buds off of the middle tray, though I kept the flowers because they are tasty, and they're not nearly as bitter as the buds. The buds are probably the most bittermost part. Of course, the leaves here, you can see a good sized portion of them there. Now, what you want to do with all of these stems, the big ones and the small ones, although some of the small ones, such as here on this plate with the flowers, will be a little more difficult sometimes to clean than the larger ones. You can pretty much clean them with your thumbnail, although you may prefer for the larger ones to use a small peeling knife, but that won't be efficient for the smaller roots. You'll have to use your thumbnails. And what you'll do is you can see here the remnants of the plant once I have sorted it all out. You can see in the sink there the bad leaves, as well as some of the stems and roots that were no good. And what you want to do is, if you're going to eat the stems, you're going to want to cut them into smaller pieces. The roots you're going to take and peel with they've got an external skin that you'll want to peel off. When you finish, they should be kind of white for a minute rather than dirty. They'll have like dirty brown spots. It's not dirt, it's the color of the skin. And you want to just slip them between 2 fingernails and just peel off the smaller ones. You can see a cleaned one here. It's white. There's no more. It's no more dark stuff on it. Of course, the larger ones you want to scrape, like peeling a potato. And you can see here the darkened color of the exterior skin, and you can see the shavings down there in the sink where I've cleaned several of the roots. This is actually the shavings from all of that pile of roots that was left over. And then you add everything into the pot and add salt. I don't add butter the first time because well, the cost of butter is kind of high, and there's no need at that point because you're gonna boil these once with the pebbles and with the salt, and then you're gonna drain off all of the water and boil them a second time with more salt. And I don't remove the pebbles until the final boil. You're gonna probably want about 1/8 of a cup of salt. This is a small pot. I could probably, for sake of reference, probably holds about 6 or 7, maybe 6 to 8 cups of water total in this pot. If that, I could fit one fist down in it, but I certainly couldn't fit two. It's now I didn't. I meant to take pictures of the final product before eating it, but unfortunately for you, I was so tempted once I pulled them out of the pot that I completely forgot, and so I ate them, and they were quite tasty. And I might add that I had a relative there who's seen me or known of me eating these things on occasion, but this was the first time they've seen me eating them at my house, but they've never seen me prepare them. And I was at my mother's house when I done this, and she actually tried them and found it quite tasty. And the leaves are probably the most edible. I recommend the leaves and the roots more so than the buds, flowers, or stems, although the flowers are good if you cook them for an extra duration beyond the leaves. You want to drain the water the first time, add more water and more salt, and then bring them to a boil again, and letting them boil probably about 10 or 15 minutes on the first and second boil. And then on the final boil, you'll want to remove all of the pebbles, and you will want to return them again. At this point, you will boil them. You'll use less water. You'll use just enough water to, if you place all of the mesh in the pot, you'll have just enough water to skim the surface of the top. You won't have a full pot of boiling water here. And at this point, you'll want to add, in this pot here, I probably used a quarter tablespoon of, or a quarter, about 2 tablespoons of butter. And I used likewise, I used about in the final product about, I don't know, maybe a tablespoon of salt and a tablespoon of garlic powder, although a garlic clove and a little bit of salt would replace this. And of course you can just use garlic salt as well. And again, they were quite tasty. So go out, find you a plant, know where you're getting it from, and try it out. I think you'll find they're rather tasty and enjoyable. And I'll try to go out and forage for some more treats out there for you and put this on here. My focus at this point has been to focus on plants that are available in the entire continental U.S. rather than a specific region such as right here in North Carolina, and that's for sake of this coming famine I've been warning people of for several years, and the concept that people may be not in the same region as myself at such time, and this plant was a staple amongst survivors, amongst pioneers for survival in the early days of this country as it grows coast to coast. And so my emphasis was on the most immediate needs of people wherever they are. So again, thanks for checking out the video, and I hope you get up the courage to go out and try them. You might find there's some good food growing right there in your own front yard outside of having to go down to the grocery store. And you'll see in this coming event that food's a little more prevalent than you think it is. So God bless those who are truly seeking the truth, and take care of yourselves.